Hi, my name is Sabrina Carter, and I'm here to help you paint this beautiful bird for our Chaffee Arts Take and Paint with Sorelli's. What you should have received in your packet is an 8x10 canvas. We've got two brushes, at least two brushes, one medium size, it should be about the size of your pinky, and one smaller size, and that's going to help us with our details. You've got a few colors here. Those are going to be your green, red, a darker blue, white, black, and yellow. To get started, you want to also make sure that you have some water to clean your brush with in between painting colors, and some paper towels to clean your brush off or to dry it when you go to apply a new color. So to get started here, we're going to work with our green. And we're going to paint that whole canvas like you can see here. As we've done before, we're going to start from the back and go forward. So what we want to do first is put that green color down. So we're going to go ahead, grab our 8x10 canvas and start with our green and brush it in there. If you have a larger brush, it'll help you go through faster, putting that green base down. Now, green just by itself does have a bit of a see-through quality to it. So if you'd like to, you can take some of that green, put it on your canvas, and then add just a little bit of white, and that'll help it to cover the canvas a little bit more. So you won't see those square patterns that are on top of the canvas. So I'm just putting a little bit of white on there, and I'm going to spread it, and you see how that covers it a bit more. A little bit of white and green mixed together. Okay, a little bit of water also helps to spread the paint out and make it a little bit thinner so that you can cover the canvas a little bit more quickly than you might without it. And if you've got a few lighter areas and darker areas, it's fine. It doesn't have to all be the same because it gives the illusion, if you've got different shades in there, gives the illusion of some depth in your background. So just go ahead and add the green and the white until you've got a full canvas covered, and leave some of those streaks in there as well. See, like I've got this white spot here that I really like. It's going to look like maybe there's something back there in the distance that we don't quite know what it is, but there is a distance. Other thing you're going to want to do is get your edges, top, sides, and bottom. And water to help spread. Now, by the time you're ready to move on to your bird or lay in some of these other colors, what you've started up here will be dry when you're ready for that. More water also helps it to dry faster. Okay, I've got my top. I'm working on my side here. And I like to hold my canvas when I do this because it's just easier to move it around and get the spots that you might otherwise miss when it's on your easel there. Yeah, a bigger brush might help to spread this a lot faster. But we would only use that once. We wouldn't need it for much of this painting. So I'm just going to stick with my medium size here. It also gives me some more streak in the background with a medium-sized brush. I'm not going to worry too much about that bottom side because as you can see here, we're going to cover most of it. I just want to kind of get a layer down there. So as I start getting around my canvas here, I don't want to put my fingers into it, so I'm just going to put my hand on the bottom and continue to paint the areas that I haven't reached yet. Some water to help spread because this bottom is going to get covered. So we just want to finish it up there. And I've got one more edge. Now, on other paintings where we've done scenic views, we wanted to wrap those edges with our image. But in this one, we've got just one bird smack in the middle of the page. We don't need to wrap our edges here. So if you wanted to later on for paint framing, you can paint those edges black or you can just leave them solid green. Okay. So I've got that white spot in there that I like. I'm just going to add a little bit more white and move it through. We want it to be there, but we don't want it to really stand out. Okay. Now we've got our background in there. And this top has already started to dry, which is great because we're going to work on top of it now. All right. When you're comfortable with your background color, you can go ahead and put it back on your easel. And we're going to switch to our detail brush. Clean off that medium-sized brush. And now we've got our small detail brush here. What we're going to do with that is sketch in where these things go, where the bird goes, where the flowers are, and where the wood is that he's sitting on. And we're going to do that with our blue because we want it to be dark. But we don't want to use black because black is harder to cover when we're done here and we want to make some changes. It's harder to cover. So I'm going to go with the blue. And I'm going to wet it because it's a sketch. It's going to be very light. Now this will probably be your hardest part, okay? Because we're going to sketch in a bird, and if you're not someone who draws a lot, you can just follow what I'm doing here to just get a general shape because it's going to take in some paint later to form him out a little bit better. So we've got our bird, he's in the middle of the page. So I'm just gonna kind of mark in the middle of the page there. We've got his head up this way, so we're just gonna sketch out a circular area. Okay, we've got his top feathers. They're gonna go like this. Okay, we're gonna bring it down into his beak. And then in. We're going to go down the back of his neck here. And then we're going to have like a little rounded off feather hump. And that's going to go right off to the edge of the page. Okay. And just know that because it's a light sketch and because we're working with thick paint here, if you don't like what you've got, you can always just go right back over it with your green, cover up the areas you don't like, and start your sketch again. So not at the corner of his beak here, but out further. We're going to have his belly start to go down, and then over. And then we're going to pop back up here toward his back wing, and then off the page, or off your canvas. Okay? And I'm just keeping my blue nice and wet because I don't want it to be solid until I'm sure I've got what I like. Okay, so these lines that I like here, I'm just going over it a little bit more so that they stay. I know which ones I want to work with when I see that they're darker. If they're lighter, it's not something I'm working with. So now we've got his tail feather. It's just going to pop right up here at an angle off your canvas. I'm going to go ahead and work in an eye. See, I'm not liking how low his beak really is right there, so I'm going to add a little bit of blue, make it darker, and change where it is. I'm going to move that up. So that's how you can change it if you like. And then if this is hard for you, go ahead and take some green, cover it up. All of this will be gone over again with thicker paint, and so you don't have to worry about making mistakes here. This is just our bottom layer. All right, so I've got an eye in. I'm going to bring his head up a little bit higher. See, that's a darker color. That's where I'm going to put in my solids when I'm ready. So that color is what I'm paying attention to. All right, so I've got his eye, and I want to put in the area where this white is going to go onto his face and belly. So I'm just going to mark it out. With my blue here, and wiggle down across the stomach, and then up under the tail feather. Okay? So I've got much of this bird sketched in here. So now I want to figure out where these logs are going to go, because those are behind the flowers. We want to do what's behind first. So I'm going to go up here with a line for a log, and then down here for another line. And then I've just got to cross a log that's kind of crossing over here. So I'm just going to put that in there. All right. The next thing we're going to do is our flowers. We're just going to sketch out where those are going to go. Very simple. We're going to create the branch lines first. So I've got one coming up over his back here. I've got another one on the edge of the canvas to the left, right there. I've got another one down here at the bottom, coming up to his face. I've got a little flower down below. I'm just going to put in a little circle there for that. And then over on the edge, I've got another one. And then a tiny little one. This does not have to be exact. You can put your flowers where you like. If you want it to be more creative and make it your own, put those flowers where you feel like they should go. You can even have some coming off the sides or down as if he's inside of a little bush of roses. So, but this is where I'm going to have mine. Okay, I've got my branches. Now I want to put in my little leaves, sketches for my leaves and my rosebuds. So for this top one here, it's just going to be little circles for my rosebuds. The thing that I like about working with a dark sketch color, paint sketch color, is that when I'm ready to go ahead and fill in those items, I know I have to add thicker paint if I want to cover it. And it helps me to know exactly where that thing is and how much of it to cover, how much paint to use, because you've got to use enough to cover that blue that's there. So I've got this one in here, my rosebuds are done. And next I want to just put a few leaves with my thinned watery blue. I've got a leaf coming out here. There's another down there. And then I've got a little twig, a little leafy twig coming off here. Okay, I'm going to move on to the next one. My rosebud, little leaf, another bud, and my last leaf over there. Okay, I've got a few more to work on, and then we're ready to start filling in our colors. So up here with a leaf. Put those buds and leaves anywhere you like. The process is going to be the same. We're just, this is the point where you get to decide where things go. I just make my circles a little wavy so that when I put my rosebuds down, they're not all exactly the same. They're just a little bit different because that's how nature is. I'll leave here. And I'm going to have a little twig pop off like I have here. A little twig and another leaf. Got one there. And my last one is going to go up here. And these are the fun ones to make when you're painting. I love making these rosebuds. Okay. Now by the time we've worked around on some of these, a lot of this has dried. The water helps it to do that again. And so then we'll be ready to put in our solid colors. Okay. So for our solid colors, we're going to use our medium brush, because we're going to be working with a lot of paint. We want it to be very thick. So for the bird, we're going to go ahead and put in his body, his white body. So we're going to take our white, and while it's not all the same white, we're going to work in with that feathering blue and gray later. So for right now, you just want the white. Okay, and we've marked out that space, so that's what you're going to follow. Make sure it's fairly thick because you want to cover the green that you have in the background. You also want to cover those blue lines. So go right up to the line, if not a bit over it. So when I did my background, I used a lot of water to help thin the paint and spread it around. But on this one, when I'm putting a thick coat on top of that base, I don't want to use water. I want it to stay thick. I almost used water there. There we go. We're going to feather him up later with some more paint and some more color. But for now, we just want to know where that white goes. And I've got some strokes of white here, so I can put that in now. Just like that. Okay. So it's thick enough for me right now. because I know that these little spots of green will get covered when I go ahead and add some blue with my white and some gray with my white to feather him up. I'm going to leave that just as it is, and I'm going to go into the next part of that bird and fill this in with a gray. And we're going to get that gray by mixing a lot of black with just a little bit of white. So I'm going to clean my medium brush, dry it off, and I might move this blue that I have here because I don't need it. And I'm going to take some of my black, or a lot of my black. Okay. I'm going to clean the brush again because I'm going to dip into white next and I don't want to ruin my white. So I'm going to take a little bit of white. I'm going to mix that in. Now that black stays very dark. So I might need just a little bit more white on there. The other thing I like to do is kind of leave some of that dark color and then mix a lighter color so that I have more than one shade of gray to work with. So now I've got this dark gray here, and I might make a third gray. Take some more white and then go to the edge of that one. Okay, and make another gray. Now, something to know about the color black is that when you're mixing in oil paints, there's a lesson on how to make black without using black from the tube, and you'd be surprised about the colors that go in there. There's actually yellows and blues that go into making a black. So this is what we're going to start with now, but later on we're going to add that dark blue to put some texture in there, and that's going to just change your variations of black and give it more life. So right here I've got this gray that I like, and you mix until you find a gray that you like, and I'm going to go ahead and coat this bird, his head there, and then up. And down his back. In a bit, we're going to get some of those other grays that we've worked with to help break up where his back goes and separates it from the tail feather. But for right now, we're just filling him in with that gray that we made, the one that you've chosen to color your bird in. So now we've got a gray tail. We're not going around our edges. We're just staying on the canvas, on the front side of the canvas here. Okay. And even his beak is a very dark gray. So I do have a darker gray here that I mixed just before I got to this lighter color. So I'm going to take that one and fill his beak in with that. And maybe on your palette you can't see the difference very well, but when you get it on there and when it dries, you'll see just how different those two grays are. Okay, I've got an eye here, and that's a very dark black eye, so I'll just go with straight black on that, fill it in. Now we've got the base for our bird, okay? You can start to see that your picture is already coming together. We're going to fill in the rest of these colors We're not going to put our details into them and our feathers and our fluffing and our petals in. We're just doing our base colors for those items. So I'm going to go with what's in back, and that's going to be our log that the bird is sitting on. And that's also a gray color. If you've used what you had for your bird, go ahead and make some more. I've already got black here. I'm just going to add a little bit more white, mix that up, get to a color that you like. And I like this one. It's just a little bit darker than the bird, so you'll see the difference. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill that in. Going around my petals, I want to leave that petal outline or the rosebud outline and my leaf outlines there because I want to fill those in with another color later. And I need to know where they are. So I'm going to go around it. I'm still using my medium brush for this. When we're coloring objects in, where we're blocking in some colors, we want to use a bigger brush because it takes a lot of work. And a smaller brush will just take too much time. And again, I'm not using water because I want it to be thick. I want to cover that background green. All the way up to your edge and down to your bottom. Oh, I just did add a little bit of water. It's getting dry. There's a lot of gray in this, so mix as much as you have to. I'm going to add a little bit more black. And then some white because I need more of that gray. If you're remixing your gray to add more, don't worry if you don't get the same exact gray, because the more that's in there, the better it's going to look, the more full it's going to look. And then you can always fill in over here and then spread some of it down there if it's different to help them relate to each other. Going around all of my buds, around all of my leaves. I still need them there. All right. So now you've got that base color in. We're looking for one more base color, and that's going to be for our rosebuds, and then our branches and leaves. So we're going to go from the back, and from the back we're going to start with those twigs that come behind our rosebuds. So we're going to make a brown color. All right. We're not going to need that medium brush for this. What happened? Did it stop somewhere?
Yeah.
Where?
I don't know. We'll make do. It'll be fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Just continue.
Did we lose a lot, or? Because I can. Okay. Ready? All right. So we're not going to need that medium-sized brush. We're going to go to our small detail brush, because those are some small twig lines. And to mix the color that we need for that, we're going to do a red and a green. I am putting my unclean brush in there, but I'm just doing it on the edge, and that should be fine. So mixing it together, and I'm getting a brown here. It's a very dark brown. Almost no matter how much red to green you put, you're going to get a dark color. But we have yellow to lighten it up if you like a lighter brown. But since I want layers in there, I'm going to start with the dark brown and go ahead and put our twigs in. Says the camera's too hot. And it's turning off.
Okay. Well, you just won't use that portion of it then.
Okay. I'm mixing here though.
Well, it's gonna be what it's gonna be.
Okay.
Get what you get.
All right. So I've got my twigs in there. I've got a few that stray out to the side. Like that. We've got another down here. And one last one here. Okay, now I'm going to lighten up my brown. With a yellow. And then just add little spots of it in there to brighten it up. You can even put just a little bit of yellow by itself in spots to give it layers. And we're going to do that a lot with some of our other colors. And this is a little bit of some detail, but since we're here, we're going to do it. Just kind of spread it in there so that it doesn't stand out too much, that yellow. Just I'm using a tiny dot, and a tiny dot is enough. Okay, now I want to do let's go with our rosebuds next. Now our rosebuds are a little bit bigger than our branches here, but I think I'm going to go with the medium brush, and that is because if I go with a smaller brush, it's going to start to get into detail, and I'm not ready for that yet. So I'm just going to do our rosebuds with this medium brush, and that's going to be with a red and a very little bit of white. And I should clean my brush here and dry it. A little bit of white into that red. And I tend to make small amounts of color, but you should probably make some bigger. Okay, so that red and white is going to give us a pink. And on my palette, I like to leave it just a little bit streaky because I want to see those colors kind of mix together and create its own detail just in the paint by itself. So I've got different layers of red in here. I've got a dark, and where I've mixed, I've got a medium, and with a little bit more white, maybe I'll get a lighter pink. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put that in. And I'm just dabbing it, kind of poking the canvas. I want to cover the blue. So make sure you get all of the blue that's in there. Do not cover your leaves. Remember where your leaves are. Remember where those leaves are. And don't touch those yet. So you see there where I had my streaky paint on the palette, it comes up here, and I like the way that that looks. It makes it look more like a petal. All right, I'm just going to continue that same thing down here to the other ones. And right here where I put my twig in, there's actually a flower on top of that, so I'm going to go right over it. One more here, making sure I cover those blue lines. We are going to go in with some detail later, so if you don't cover it all now, it's fine, because we're not done with them yet. Don't leave out any of these rosebuds. See that thicker brush, that medium-sized brush, carries more paint with it. You don't have to work so hard for them if you use a larger brush. Okay, and I'm running out of some white. I'm going to add more. Okay, they're almost there. We're almost ready for our details. There we go. Am I missing anyone? I guess that's a leaf there. So I'm going to leave that one. And now I'm going to go ahead and start mixing my leaf colors. So I do have a green here. And I want to use that green, but I also want to work in some other colors to give that green some definition. I'm going to take green, and just like I did with the red, and just like I did with the gray and the brown, I'm going to put some green down, and then I'm going to work other colors into it and just leave sections of dark to lighter and lighter. And you can mix all of your stuff onto just a piece of paper. You don't need to have a palette. Piece of paper is easier because you can just throw it away when you're done. You don't have to clean it up like I'm going to have to do here. So I've got green. And I want to go two ways with this green. I want to make a lighter green with white. So on the edge of my green, I'm going to go ahead and mix a little bit of white. And on the other edge, I'm going to mix some yellow. Okay, so now I've got 3 shades of green in there. So I've got my original green, that darker color. I've got my green mixed with white, which gives me a lighter color green. And then I've got my green mixed with yellow over here. And that gives me a bright, sunnier green. So I'm going to start, and I'm not going to wash my brush for this in between these greens because I want them to kind of mix and combine together a little bit. I don't want it to blend completely. I just want all those spots to be in there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start putting in my leaves. And then I'll take my lighter or my brighter green and just dab on top of that. I want to imagine that the sun is coming from above, and so I'm going to dab those lighter or brighter colors on the tops of my leaves. So here's one. And this is where you can also be creative with your leaves. Choose your sun spot, put that brighter color over there where it's coming from. Make them any shape you'd like. Just remember to try to fill in those blue lines. You want to cover that blue that you had there. So I lost my brown, but I'm going to go ahead and go back and fill that brown in later. You can start all with your darker color green and then go back and highlight if you like. Make sure you get all of them. If you want a little bit more, some finer detail on your leaves, use that small brush. And I'll try that now so you can see what I mean. So I've got a lighter green here, and I might just give it like a tip. On all the tops of my leaves. And then I might take that green that I mixed with yellow, or even just some yellow alone, because while it's still wet, it will blend into the green. And then just a smaller tip on each leaf where the sun is hitting. And this is where I have the most fun, because I get to see how each of them turns out. They're all a little bit different, which is what you want. Just play around where you'd like those colors to go. It definitely makes it seem like a more sunny picture when you add those yellows in. Okay, so we've got all of our colors down. Now we're going to work with our details. And while I'm on these rosebuds and branches, I'm just going to go with that. So what I'm going to do here with my detail brush, my small brush, is go ahead and take some white, mainly white. You can mix it a little bit into the pink that you have there, but you want lots of white on there. And give those rosebuds some tips, some bright sunny tips. And I'm just kind of dabbing around so that it gives the impression that there are many little petals that are getting bright tips. So just like that. You can see why a smaller brush is good for this. It helps you to not cover that whole bud, but just give it the slight details. I'm losing my white, so I'm going to go ahead and re-dip. Get all of them. Here's also where if you had any blue spaces left, those blue sketch lines, here's where you can take the opportunity to color those in. And those rose bushes are now coming alive the more that we put on them. If your palette is getting dry or your dish of colors is getting dry, you can always just add a little bit of water to them. Okay, so I've got those done. I just want to add a little bit of red to the bottom side now. Since my sun is up here, I put the white on the top, I put the yellow on the top of my leaves. But since there's no sun coming from here, the darker is going to go there. So I've got a little bit of red, and I'm going to go on the bottom and do the same technique. Just some dabbing with our small brush. Until I've got all of my rosebuds covered and finished. And just play with different shades as you dip in and out. You'll end up with different shades anyway, but you can also play with them. Last one here. Now my rosebuds are complete. So we're going to go ahead and add some detail into this bird, and then we're going to freshen up our lines on the background here, and we'll be done. So we're going to start with our bird's stomach here, because that's going to be the easiest. And what we'll do is get white onto the palette. I'm going to go ahead and clean what I have here because I'm not using it anymore. And I can just clean that with a little bit of water. Okay, most of it is dry, so it's not going to affect the colors we're mixing. So we've got it clean. We're going to go ahead and take our white. And like we did with some of our other colors, we're going to split that by painting on the edges with a blue. Just paint mixing in. That's what I meant by painting the edges, is just mixing our paint in. A little bit of blue on the edge of the white, and then black on the edge of the other. We're going to be using very little of that because we want most of him to stay very white. So clean your brush after mixing. Grab that white. Go ahead and get his belly nice and wet again with that white. And then just scrape a little bit as you go, a little bit of gray with it. And if it's too much, go back to your white. And if it's way too much, clean your brush and go back to your white. You see it just covers right up there because it dries so quickly. Okay, he's already getting some texture in there. I'm gonna go ahead and take a little bit of blue, edge of the blue, and put those in spots. I like to put it in spots that might look a little shady. So underneath his chin, and then under his tail feathers, back there, bottom of his belly. Okay, that gray as well, just in some of those same spots next to where you have that blue, around here towards the back of his eye. Okay. Now I'm going to work up into the top half of the bird. And what I want to do for that is keep these colors here because you're going to need them, that white blue and that gray with the white, and then that white also. But I also want to have a very dark color. So I'm going to take some more black, kind of give it a spot on its own there. And then you can mix back and forth those colors that you have. So, and I really like the blue touches that go into his feathers. So I'm gonna go ahead and start giving him some detail with that. Some dark darks for those feathers that go to the back of his tail, and then definitely much darker up here because that one's in the far background, so we want it to be very dark. Okay, but I do want some blue in there. So like I said earlier, nature-made black is not all black. It's got other colors in it. Okay. And I'm going to take some of that gray that I made to wet him a little bit. This is wetting him, wetting this image is also giving you a surface for mixing. You need to have some wet on there to mix and blend your colors together. So now I'm going to take the white that's in the middle and work that into the wet. And so now this bird has lots more texture. Take some of that blue and work it in. I'm going to wet it with my original gray. Okay, and look, I've got that blue outline there, so I'm going to cover that up. All right, some of the last things I want to do is just put a little bit of shine on his beak, a little bit of shine in his eye, and then fix a little bit of my edges. So to shine his beak, again, we need to wet it with an original color. His original color was a very dark gray on the beak, so I'm going to wet it. Then I'm going to put a shine on it. Just a little bit of white there is the shine. And same with his eye. And I want to use a detail brush for that because it's so small. So for his eye, actually first I want to wet it with the black that's there. And then go ahead and take white to help his eye pop a bit. Okay, just popping some blacks in here to make his feathers stand out. I'm going to go ahead and fix some of this green in here where I had any mistakes. with a larger brush. And I'm going to do what we did before and take that green and a little bit of white. Then I'm going to go around the edges. Any bumpy lines that you had in there, you can clean up now at this point. And spread it out so that it doesn't, that cleanup doesn't stand out from your background. You have to spread it a bit. Got one spot down here. There we go. Okay, and there we have our bird and rosebush painting. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you very much, Chaffee Arts, for allowing me to teach these classes.
We hope you have enjoyed your evening of simple happiness at home and want to see your final product. Either email us at chaffeearts@gmail.com or visit our Facebook page to share pictures from your Take and Paint adventure. For information on future Chaffee Arts events, like us on Facebook.